Fast Tracks webinar. This is a weekly event we do every Friday at 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern, where we cover various topics of the Fast Track software. You can see a list of these events if you go to our website, goftx.com, choose the FTX Lifeline tab at the top of the screen, scroll down about halfway down this page, look for the webinar button, choose that webinar button, and this page will bring you to the list of the webinars that are both upcoming, that you can sign up for, and all the previous webinars where you can view the recording. You can also sign up for a newsletter to be notified of upcoming webinars. Today we're going to be going over some changes with the latest software release that has a new rule in place for Juul products. Now, I'm sure everybody's heard that there's tons of vaping law changes, pretty much it seems like weekly nowadays. And Juul's trying to get ahead of the curve. They announced about a month ago their RACS program. And part of their RACS program is going to be where they require your point of sale system to force the driver's license scanning for their products and abide by transactional limits. We've gone ahead and added these settings into the POS, which I'll go ahead and show you now. I'm going to open up the POS and log in. And make sure you have the proper permission when you're logging in. You have to have the settings permission. So I'm going to go to Actions, Settings, Settings, choose the Register settings, and there is a setting in the bottom right corner called Force Juul Sale Limits ID Scan. Make sure this is checked. If you're having to check it, make sure you choose the Save button, which will require you to restart the POS. And this will then force driver's license scanning on their products as well as transactional limits. So let's take a look at how that works. I'm going to open the point of sale up. And just how traditional items work, if I ring up an item, there's no age verification. I've got age verification essentially turned off on my POS now, completely. But I have that setting for Juul enabled. This will override whatever age verification settings you have and go by the rules that they want to enforce on the retailer. So if I scan a Juul item, notice it then prompts for an age verification. Notice also there's no bypass. I can't manually enter a birth date using that visually verified. So I'm going to either A, have to be a manager to override this and follow their proper procedures to override that, or B, which is what you should be doing, is scan the driver's license. So if I scan the driver's license next, it's going to then prompt for a license verification. This is something else that they want. You need to, at this point, verify that on the screen matches what the physical driver's license says, just to make sure that there's no fake license involved. At this point, you can accept or reject. Reject would, of course, not add that item to the transaction. Accept would then add that item to the transaction. And then you can proceed with the transaction as normal. So let's bring up another item here. There is our driver's license scanning prompt. I'll go ahead and scan that driver's license. And I'm going to reject it in this case. And notice nothing was added. The transaction had no item added to it because that driver's license was rejected. In this case, I could have just not approved that license. It obviously was fake. So let's go ahead and let's bring up another item. And I'm going to, this time, use the manager override. So they have a setting in place where you can allow a manager override. So I'm going to choose this, and I'm going to be prompted with a new age verification override. At this point, you have to request the physical license or the ID from the customer, and it can be a tribal or Native American ID, it can be a passport or passport card, and it can be a military card. At this point, you have to choose, did the customer hand you that valid ID? Are you confirming that you are a manager? And does it comply with one of the above scenarios? Is it one of those three types of identification? So we'll go ahead and choose that. The next button then prompts, so we can choose the next button. And then at this point, it's going to prompt for a manager login. And you can either enter the manager employee ID and password, or use biometrics by choosing that fingerprint. So I'm going to enter in the manager login. And at this point, we have to enter that age verification. So we're going to have to enter the birth date and then enter in the expiration date of the license, because this is going to be logged. And I'm going to enter an expiration date. We'll choose next. And then we have one final confirmation. We want to review the age and ID. We want to make sure that this is above the minimum age to purchase this item in our state. And does the information match that provided physical ID, and is it legitimate? We'll go ahead and choose yes. And then that item is added to the transaction, and we can proceed with normal ringing up. So of course, by far, it's easier just to scan the driver's license. That's what your goal should be. All right, so we've gone over the age verification. Now let's look at some of the transactional limits. So I'm going to go ahead and scan a device kit. And I'm going to scan the driver's license. I'll verify that license. So we've got one device kit on the sale. Now let's try scanning another one. Notice I did get a big red screen. Order has exceeded volume limits. Transaction cannot be completed. This is because their limit is one device kit per transaction. So that second device kit wasn't even added to the transaction. So your device kits have a one transactional limit. So let's try doing the pods. I'm going to scan a pod UPC. I'll scan the driver's license. We'll go ahead and accept that. And then at this point, I'm going to scan another pod. There's 2, 3, 4, and then as soon as I scan that fifth one, I'm going to get that same screen because they have a limit of 4 pods in a single transaction. So that fifth pod kit was not added to the transaction. The max I can sell is 4, so I'll go ahead and complete that transaction. And we'll do one last test here. I'm going to scan one device kit and scan my driver's license. And then I'm going to scan my 4 pod kits, 4 pod packs. So I can have in one transaction, one device kit and 4 pod packs. If I try adding that 5th pod, I'm going to get that error message. I can't add that to the transaction. And if I try adding another device kit, I can't add it to the transaction. So they can be shared on that same transaction, but you still can't exceed those limits. I'll go ahead and subtotal this out and cash that sale out. All right, so that's essentially how the Joule rule works in the point of sale. It's a simple setting you can toggle on and off. You can also, if you're in a corporate environment, go to your maintenance module and toggle this on via the POS settings, send that down to your stores, and then as soon as they restart their POS application, at that point, the rules are in place. All right, I hope everybody learned something new today on how this functionality works. Once again, these webinars, they're weekly events every week at 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern. You can see these if you go to our website, goftx.com, choose that FTX Lifeline tab, scroll down to the webinars button, choose that, and then this will have a list of all of our webinars. If you have any suggestions on future webinar topics, let us know at info@goftx.com. And if you have any questions about this topic today or any other general questions, let us know at websupport@fasttrackspos.com. Thank you and have a great weekend.